Just a foolish dreamer, but I don't care. I know my happy. Hello. I see we already have a good crew. Going to give folks one more minute to jump on. In the interim, if any of you are new, our theme music is Zoom by the Commodores from my old hometown of Tuskegee, Alabama. This song came out in 1977. And since we started doing Zoom meetings during the pandemic, I wish I'd listened to the Commodores and invested in Zoom before the pandemic. We'll get started in just a second. Well, hello and welcome. Welcome. I'm John Miller, senior attorney at Rock Solid Law and Title in Ponte Vedra Beach. And I appreciate each of you joining us this morning for this last webinar of 2024. You know, typically, because these will exist on our website for a while, I try not to say much topical. But last year at this time, I rewrote the lyrics to the Shane McGowan Pogue song, Fairy Tale of New York, Christmas song, for estate planning. And it was kind of fun. And then I was trying to think, what can we talk about this year that might be beneficial to people as they go into family gatherings in the holidays? You know, our firm does three things. We close real estate professionally and on time, because I believe that home ownership is the cornerstone of the American dream. I also believe real property ownership is a great way to build wealth. I love representing entrepreneurial business owners. Small business owners are my jam. Small business is the heartbeat of our American economy, and I love working with business owners. And then because I really believe that strong families are essential to our American culture, I practice in estate planning. And one of the greatest things about that area of the law practice is that it helps to build strong families through multiple generations. And that's kind of how I came down on today's subject. I just believe that families are essential to what this great experiment in the Democratic Republic that has gone on for, you know, well over 200 and approaching 300 years. And really, though, families are important. And so what can we do to help families be strong? Well, we can have great estate planning from one generation to the next, and we can use those estate plans to show the values of the people who are creating them, typically from parent to child. So today I was thinking about the fact that many of us will be gathering in large extended families throughout the country. And obviously we serve families in Florida, but there are quality lawyers in other states that can help your relatives from somewhere else. And so I was thinking about, how do we talk about estate planning in a way that is beneficial to the people that you're going to be seeing. I was with a business manager this morning, and she's about 50 years old. And she and her husband completed their estate planning a couple of years ago. with another firm, a quality firm. And she said she didn't want to go have that conversation because she didn't like talking about that stuff. And I said, that's what happens to a lot of people. So I said, what was it like when you finished? And she said, well, my husband felt a great sense of relief. So the peace of mind and relief that comes with having done the process is a good way of entering into the conversation and a good goal at the end. So my subject today, and it's the first time I've done this subject, is tips how to use family gatherings as an opportunity to discuss estate planning in a compassionate and constructive way, right? So estate planning does take care of the person doing the planning and signing the documents, both during their lifetime and afterward. And failing to plan will negatively affect them both during their lifetime and afterward, right? So, a great way of entering the conversation is just checking to be sure that the older generation has a healthcare surrogate, someone who's been appointed to talk to the physicians and doctors when they can't, and has a power of attorney, appointing someone who can take care of their financial details when they're no longer able to do so. I always like to say it's as little a thing as being able to talk to the cable company to change or terminate cable service, right? You need to have those in place. What happens if you don't? If you don't, then you've got to go to court and have someone appointed as a legal guardian. And if that is the avenue that is taken, first off, there can be a big fight in court over who gets to do it or has to do it. Second off, that guardian must report to that judge for as long as the ward, the person who's subject to the guardianship, is alive. Not true when you have a power of attorney and a healthcare surrogate can make those decisions. First off, the person gets to decide who makes those decisions for them. And second off, no reporting to the judge or government supervision of a family's business. So one of the best ways to get in the conversation is, wow, have you taken care of that? Oh, you haven't taken care of that. Let's talk about why it's important. So we don't have to go to court and have a judge appoint us to allow us to do these things for you when you can't do them for yourself. And uh, and secondly, to avoid having to go to court. The biggest thing, one of the biggest things estate planning can do is avoid going to court for guardianship during lifetime or to the probate court after you're dead. Most families would rather keep their business private, keep their affairs to themselves, and not have to have a judge preside over the details of their family. So if there is no trust created, then the heirs are going to have to go to court in a probate action to deal with all their details, all of the details that their parents left behind. Listen, I hear people complain all the time about having to clean out all the stuff their parents collected. Who wants to have to spend their time going to court to have to be appointed as a personal representative to then be able to marshal the assets and deal with everything? So nobody really wants to do that. So there's your conversation starter, right? So if you're an adult and you have living parents, let's encourage them this holiday season to get this work done. I promise you, I've practiced law 40 years. I promise you, at the end, people say, "Ooh, that's a load off. What a relief. I'm so glad that I got that done." You know, I talked to my mother on the phone on the way to work today. And she no longer listens to these webinars because they talk about things she's already done. she's going to be 90 next month, which is such a blessing for us. I said, Mom, how do you feel about the way the conversation was had? And how do you feel about having done the work? And she said, essentially, it's such a huge relief for me to know that the house is in a trust and that I've already passed responsibility essentially to the next generation and that you guys are all talking about it. She even pointed out she's one of the people that already has, my dad passed a while back, her name on the tombstone. She says, all they got to do is put the date. It makes me feel great to know that those details are taken care of. So, as part of that process, you, and I'm talking to you adults who have living parents, are going to know that you're not going to be saddled with having to go to court to deal with whatever your parents left behind. And your parents are going to feel a huge sense of relief in knowing that they have taken care of those details and that they don't have to think about that stuff anymore. So there's tip number one on um, how to get into the conversation. We always encourage adults who have living parents to encourage their parents to get their estate planning done. And listen, if you need a referral in another state, I can often help with that as well because I have nationwide networks of excellent estate planning attorneys. Um, I liken this conversation. This is the one step further that I want to go with you during this session to the conversation about what their end of life wishes are. That obviously end of life medical treatment comes up in the estate planning concept, but what about after you're gone, mom, dad? How do you want to be celebrated? How do you want the funeral to go? Who do you want to be in charge of doing that? This is a great way to start that conversation. And there are many resources online to help with starting this conversation. My point is that once this conversation started, it leads easily into estate planning and talking about wills, trusts, keeping the family out of court, and then all those ancillary documents that I was talking about. You know, when my dad passed, he had let us know that he wanted a New Orleans style jazz band at his celebration. And don't you know, in the mountains of North Carolina, we were able to find one. And, that kind of music just made the whole event celebratory. So a detail like that might not have been something we would have come up with. My dad was also a bluegrass fan, and that would have been easier to find in the mountains of North Carolina. But nope, he wanted a little bit of New Orleans in his. What a great way to start the conversation. Hey, when we're all gathered, because we're going to get together to celebrate you and we're going to miss you, but how would you like that event to be? And then when you do it, the adult kids aren't sitting around thinking, gosh, what would mom have wanted? I mean, between cremation and the very, very expensive coffin is a lot of real estate to cover. And most everybody has an idea of what they want, or they say, I don't care, I'll be gone. You guys decide, make it easy, make it fun, whatever the deal is. I'm hoping that I'll leave behind a little pot of gold so that a great band can be hired and people can enjoy themselves at the party that I can't attend. So, and once the conversation started about that, you know, you're already there. How easy is it then to talk about, last will and testament? Wait, we want to skip court. Let's do a trust. Our family has the assets for that. Hey, somebody needs a little special consideration, and a trust can do that. Hey, we've got young kids. What if they inherit, right? We don't want them to blow all the money at age 18. Let's give it to them at 25, 30, 35, whatever it is the family wants. So I think that the holidays are the perfect time for this conversation to take place when families are together anyway. A great way to start the conversation, is either A, with a horror story about somebody who died and left a mess. And if you don't know somebody, well, I bet everybody does, because I got to tell you, People want to tell me about what happened at the funeral or when the fangs came out or when so and so made a money grab all of the time when someone has died. It's as easy as so and so said that dad always wanted me to have the fill in the blank. Mercedes, business. Oh yeah, it comes up all the time. And dad didn't write it down. And who's telling the truth? And how are the other kind of kids going to be made whole if one kid only gets the business? Or even better, if you know one, a hero story. And I do hear those. And I hear those because they come from families that we helped to plan. When somebody's died and left everything properly in place, you know what? We really didn't have any problem. We were worried about so and so sibling coming out of the woodwork. They've been out of the family for 20 years, but mom and dad took care of that. We didn't have to do a thing. Everything passed seamlessly. And let me tell you, that's how you build a good legacy. When things pass seamlessly, people that are alive after you're gone are going to talk good about you and not tell those horror stories. Suggest that to your parents. Say, hey, let's get this thing done, right? I mean, there's a saying, nothing's certain other than death and taxes. We're going to have both. So it's a pretty pragmatic way to start. And listen, the sooner you have the conversation about end of life planning, the sooner you're going to have peace of mind that you've left nothing unsaid, right? So, researching for this discussion, 9 out of 10 people feel that these conversations are important. But many, whether it be the parent or the child, feel that the other one is the one who should bring it up first. So years go by, nobody has the conversation because nobody's sure of how to start it. So how have you navigated big talks in the past? I know you've had them. Choosing the college your parents wish you didn't. Bringing home somebody you're not certain their parents are going to completely approve of. Some decision to move or anything else that's got to be brought up in the family. How did you do those? Think about when it went well. Maybe it would be better to write a letter or even an email in advance of this visit. Hey, here's something I've been thinking about. Really want to know what your wishes are and how we can best put those into place. What would you like for us to know? Ask open-ended questions that let the older generation talk, right? Don't ask as lawyers do, leading questions leading only to a yes or no response. Isn't it true? No, no, no. Hey, what would you like that day to be like? Oh, well, here's how we can get to that. All right. So maybe by writing that email, that letter, the old-fashioned thing you put a too expensive stamp on, by note in advance, maybe it will make the conversation easier to bring up when you're together. Maybe your parents would have the opportunity to think about their responses, and you might have a better conversation in the end. How about starting with, I have some questions about your wishes for the rest of your life. We want to make sure that we're doing the things that you want to do in the time you have here with us, together with us. Hey, and we also want to make sure that we do the memorial the way you'd like to have it done. Um, another way, another way to accomplish the conversation is offer to bring them to see an estate planning attorney like us. It's up to them whether you're in the room, right? You can be in the room or not in the room. And the client gets to choose. But as part of our discussion, many of these questions will be raised either directly, probably, or inferred indirectly, and it'll make it really easy to follow up at another time. In addition to offering to bring them to see us, you may want to offer to take them to visit a funeral home or a cremation service like the Neptune Society in order to get the ball rolling. I don't know if that's the best way to go, if you can have the conversation more casually and maybe in front of a fire at Christmas time, you know, that sort of has a warm family glow about it. But if you just can't do that, or if your folks are somebody that really can't participate in the conversation, maybe that more formal route's better, either with an estate planning attorney like us, or with someone that's going to help plan the celebration and funeral for them the way they want it done. A lot of people, excuse me, a lot of people have in mind, religious or otherwise, the way they want their funeral, memorial service, celebration to be managed. And your job is to find out what they care about that and to make sure it happens, and then to take that and roll it into making sure your life's better in the future by making sure that they have that plan in place. Okay. More than anything else, make sure at the end of the conversation, you leave the door open so that they will feel comfortable coming back to it when they've had an opportunity to have more thoughts and ideas, maybe just a little time to mull it over. It may be uncomfortable having these conversations or really to take the first step into having the conversation. But my 40 years of experience practicing law tells me that it's way worse to try to figure out what they wanted when they're no longer around to be in the conversation. At that point, it's guesswork. And I can tell you from my experience, different members of the family will often have very different opinions about what they would have wanted. Okay. So, um, it's a different approach than I've taken in the past in these sessions. But in order to help somebody get their estate plan done, there has to be an initial conversation. And with families coming together during this holiday period, um, I'm trying to think of ways that I can help you or those that you love start this conversation. In order to help facilitate that, we are going to send you a gift card. This gift card will entitle anyone that you want to give it to the opportunity to consult with us about estate planning with whoever it is that you want to give it to, and we're going to waive our fee. So it's a $495 value that we're going to give you free to give to somebody else. Having said that, if there's anybody on this call that hasn't had the conversation themselves and who wants to come in and talk to me, I'll encourage you to call my team, 904-241-1113, set up an appointment, and I will also waive that fee for you. Now, this is to talk about what estate planning may be appropriate for you, planning for the future of your family. I'm close to the end of my presentation, so I wanted to let you know there's a chat bar and a question and answer bar right there. If anybody has a question, I would ask you to go ahead and type it in now so that I can answer it. If I don't see any, we will be following up to make sure that you know about that offer to help you with this process. Now, if your people live in another state, we will help them find an attorney who could help them. Because if they're not Florida residents, I'm not qualified to give them legal advice about their estate planning. Wow, I must have been an absolute model of clarity here at the end of the year. I don't see any questions at all coming up. We've had a large group today. I really appreciate every single one of you for joining this call. And it being December, I would like to wish you the happiest holiday celebration in the manner in which you celebrate, whether it's Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, a warm a winter solstice. We're coming up on the longest night of the year, or any other uh, uh, choice that you make in celebrating these holidays. From my whole personal family and our law family here at Rock Solid Law and Title, I want to wish you a very, very happy Christmas and a wonderful new year. We will continue our webinars into the new year, and we will be getting out a notice of what the first subject of next year will be. Not seeing any questions, I'd like to thank you for joining me, and I will leave you once again with the legendary and fabulous Commodores from my old hometown of Tuskegee, Alabama. Lionel Richie and the Commodores. Zoom. Hope you're on the nice list. Bye, John. Bye, John. Bye, Heidi. Thanks for joining.